The high-grade police Zaku from Mobile Suit Gundam G-Quacks is one of the weirdest Gundam kits I have ever built that I've had to re-record the intro. It is that wild. I'll just jump right to what I got ranked. I got ranked gold here with some issues here and there, but I also gave it the new type award straight away because this is a must-build kit. The weird thing is, I would say this is like parallel world gunpla. It's like a completely different style of Gundam kit entirely. It doesn't feel like something by Bandai. It poses weird, it builds weird, the plastic is weird, but not in a good or bad way, just in a completely different sort of way. It is absolutely wild. It actually is so apt that it is from a Gundam show such as G-Quacks, which is parallel worldy. And I don't mean in the weird kind of way that the high-grade G-Quacks was. This is a different beast entirely. Got it through Hobby Link Japan, link in the description. Let's go back in time and check it out. So first off, a little bit of a quick peek at the box, and I have to say, I am really digging the box art designs on the G-Quacks boxes. I never thought Bandai could actually outdo the very beautiful designs we had on the Witch from Mercury boxes, where they're in a very kind of faded out, almost pastel kind of look, but this brand new, almost vaporwavy looking pink-green combo is just really nice. And the box art, again, is almost like master grade tier on a high grade box. Again, all the information is all over the science about what you're going to be having inside this box, what we're going to see, and so far so good. Hopefully we will be seeing some green Zakus in future as well as the Shah Aznable color, but for now, we're going to be going with this. So we've got 1, 2, and 3 bags of runners in here, so not too crazy. Should be a quick enough build, so if you want to build yourself an entire police squad, you will be able to do that fairly easily enough, I assume. So the manual right here looking like we've seen with the G-Quacks. We've got the full blurb about the Zaku right there. I'll throw it up on screen so you can read that for yourself. When it comes to the plastic, we've got a grand total of 8 runners, but as you can see, some of them are very tiny. We do have some marking sticker style decals in here as well, and overall the build looking fairly standard. It does mention on the blurb that there is a high mobility version and a armored version, well, the high mobility being the armored version of this mobile suit as well, but it doesn't seem like that will be a build inside of this box. So on cracking out the plastic that we do get inside this box, it's looking promising so far. I do like the way it's actually laid out in the runners. I will mention we do have clear parts in here. They are read out of box. If you want to customize this, that might be a bit of an issue. But yeah, I do like the way the stuff is laid out here because some of the parts of the Zaku, which I assume is not in the standard and Char version, are on separate runners, as well as the included weaponry for this particular Zaku, which does imply we're going to be seeing more Zakus as we would expect in future. When it comes to the marking decals, these are stickers. That's not too bad. Stickers do tend to work a little better on bare plastic right out of box and are a little bit more durable. They just don't really look as nice as water slides. Water slides, as far as I know, are not available just yet, and I wish Bandai would release them on day 1. Usual complaint. I will mention at this point there are water slides coming out in September, but they haven't showed the designs yet. That could include these, so you might want to hold off. So first up onto the build, we've got the leg. So this is the completed leg. Overall, the articulation on this is nice. We've got a bit of a knee bend, which does look a little bit on the funny side. That's a funky looking knee right there, a little bit on the skinny side. This also is quite limited. As you can see, it doesn't move too much. Side to side is definitely a little bit better and overall unique. Now, before I mention that, there is a nice hip joint as well up here, but it is in a completely different spot than you'd normally see. It is a little bit further down, as you do have this whole apparatus right here. Now, I will mention about the knee. Actually, there's 2 kind of odd things about the leg. First off, this is a single point knee, but it really is a double jointed knee. It's just some of it is locked behind what looks like a secret modification. I assume if you cut away some of these little tab sections here, you will get the full double knee bend. Like I mentioned, we only have a bend right here, but there's obviously another bend in this section right here as well, which is limited by the way it builds, because I did actually screw up the build on one of these legs and left it unlocked, and you get more out of it, which is an interesting aspect. The other aspect is the stickers on this kit are not what I expected. They're almost made out of a kind of latex feeling material as opposed to the usual kind of hard sticker we normally get. So they are mildly stretchy, and it does give them some odd properties. Like if you're popping the one on the shin, you can get air bubbles extremely easily, which isn't a usual kind of sticker issue with gunpla. It also does make them a little bit more difficult to apply than usual. They don't feel permanent. They remove just as easy as they stick on, which you know, is good or bad depending on what you really want from it. They don't lay in, well, that flat, and some of them are really small and skinny, and just kind of attaching them on is a little bit on the awkward side. And again, they feel like they're gripping on like plumber's tape, as opposed to actually sticking. Interesting. Overall, there is one thing I can definitely say for definite, and that is it's unique and very different to what we would have seen before. So moving up the mech now to the waist, and this is super simple. It's just 7 pieces, and that includes 2 verniers. So very similar to what we would have seen with some Witch from Mercury kits. There's no moving parts, no nothing like that. It's just essentially a Zaku pair of Y-fronts. However, once it comes to the torso right here, things start getting a whole lot more unique. We've got these almost semi-free floating little side of body armor sections, which are quite nice. There is articulation in the ab crunch here to some degree, and overall this just feels a little different than your kind of average Gundam model kit. There's something almost a little bit more rubbery about the plastic in it. I'd almost say it's a little similar to Chinese mecha model kits in a kind of little way to gunpla we would have seen before. And I do mean plastic quality wise. The shoulder joints in this are very nice. It's a little bit of a joint that moves on through this side of the torso just like this. So it does have a little bit of movement inside the body itself. You do 2 of these, the next you then just throw up into a kind of collar section and you attach these 3 pieces together. You build a bit of a waist joint in here, which is a bit of a forward pointing joint. This attaches into the gray section of the front of the torso, and that then attaches into the part we had built before. Now I will mention there's another one, the stickers now at this point, and this rubbery, latexy almost feeling kind of sticker style goes around curves in a better way than I've ever seen from Bandai stickers before. So even though this is a flat sticker onto a curve, it's pretty much attaches perfectly without any raised aspects. This works. And speaking of rubberiness, the kind of seam you're seeing down the back of this right here kind of demonstrates that to some degree. It's kind of squishy, more so than your usual Bandai plastic, and you actually have to hold this together with pressure, and this comes from the 2 different backpack attachment parts that attach onto it. And going from rubbery that we aren't that used to rubbery we are used to, we've got some of those Zaku pipes in here. These attach onto the back, swing up to the front. You do this twice for both of those pipes, then you just lock it in position round back and around front, just like this. Then you attach on those almost free-floating armor sections which attach onto the shoulder joints, and everything just works out quite well. So next up in here we've got the arms. So I was about to say a left and a right, that's usually how it works. So the bend is nice. There's a lot going on when it comes to the build of the forearm. You actually layer up all these little kind of joint aspects individually, which is quite unique. We've got another sticker here, and after me saying the last time that the other sticker was quite good, this one is a little bit of a headache. And what makes both arms different is just the usual kind of Zaku armor layout. And we do have those absolutely fantastic little police lights up on the shoulder. That is just a fun aspect entirely. Anyway, when it comes to the build, the sticker, like I mentioned, is a little bit of a headache. You kind of have to line it up in a funny kind of way with a little bit of a kind of sticking outy bit towards the top. So the left and the right are a little bit different. Then you have to manage to wrap it the whole way around. Again, this is kind of elasticated to some degree, so it can end up too long or too short, depending on how much you stretch it or don't stretch it. And it kind of grabs on in a funny kind of way. I'm not sure how future-proof these are, but in a way, it did still kind of work. Very unusual. The upper arm and the shoulder build up in the normal kind of Zaku shoulder kind of way, but down on the forearm you kind of attach a joint section into half the forearm, followed by the joint, sandwich in another little kind of elbow piece which may move during the bend, a wrist joint, another part into the elbow before attaching on the other side of the armor. So there's a lot in the forearm itself. The shoulders build up simply, and then you just kind of attach the arm together just like so. Overall, it's similar to your average Gundam model kit, but at the same time a little bit different, especially in the forearm. So the last part then is the head, and this is similar in design and, well, execution to your standard Zaku head. We do have the little bit under here for moving the mono eye side to side, and the pipes are made out of a slightly rubbery material. As for the build, again, it is fairly standard, so you just put the pipe onto the main body of the head, lock it in from the back and the front. When it comes to the mono eye section, you have to stick a sticker onto this side-to-side moving bit of plastic. There is no shiny stickers in here. This is just on the decal sheet, so it is matte. And when it comes to the top of the head, this is made out of 2 pieces, so the front section obviously will be replaceable for Commander type Zakus when those are released later on. It just all attaches together, and then we've come full circle to the head being finished like this. Let's get it assembled. So definitely I can say right here from the first impression that this is like nothing I have ever built before. And that even goes for the G-Quacks. This feels completely different. Again, the plastic here almost feels like a rubberier than usual plastic for a Bandai kit, which kinda gives it a little bit of a kind of flex and a bend to it, which, you know, is definitely not a bad thing. It also does mean that it's exceptionally grippy, as you'd expect from a plastic that is somewhat rubbery. Again, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing is yet to be seen. So far, this feels extremely, I would say high-end, but I'm not sure if that is the particular word that I'd be looking for, and part of me tells me that it might just be. I guess what I could almost say here is this feels almost action figure-y as opposed to model kitty. For better or worse, mainly for better. I'm super impressed by this. Interesting. And what definitely makes it the most interesting to me is I built it back to back with the brand new Advance of Zeta version of the High Zaku, which definitely feels a lot more regular, kind of old school, especially in the legs, because this is actually a polycap build, even though everything is brand new for this year. Maybe last year if you take into consideration the white and blue version. Yeah, this feels really old school, and this feels, again, it feels like a figure maybe. Very interesting. Definitely won't wiggle around like that. That's for sure. So now jumping on into the aesthetics, and finally there's the high-grade Police Zaku in all of its glory. Now all I can say is when it comes to the high-grade G-Quacks line so far, they are nothing if not absolutely unique. This is a completely next level take on the classic Zaku design. The only thing that really is similar is the use of the pipes, the head and the shoulder armors. Otherwise, this is almost like a complete re-envisioning. Now that may or may not be to your taste, but one thing is for sure, it's like nothing else. Like I mentioned, it's almost kind of like a rubbery build that doesn't feel like other gunpla at all, not even like the high-grade G-Quacks itself. I'll also mention that this isn't its straight build per se. It is essentially straight build, but I did panel line it a little bit just to bring out all of those details, and I did use pretty much all of the stickers that are inside of the box. So that is what you'd get after doing all of that. When it comes to the overall silhouette and the overall look of this particular model kit, it has absolutely nailed the Police Zaku 100%, at least physically. All of the angles are there, all of the design elements are there, and it is like nothing we have ever seen before. The proportions are absolutely crazy, those giant fuel tank thruster hips, the big gap between the actual legs themselves, the almost sneaker looking feet to it. It really does have a little bit of an Evangelion spin to the overall design. The upper body is a little more traditional Zaku-esque, a lot more curves, the pipes are a lot bigger, and the shoulder armors are very reduced compared to what we would have seen before, but overall looking fantastic. So when it comes to the color separation right here on the Police Zaku, it is extremely nice, but it's not without its flaws. First off, props for actually including the nice clear parts for those little siren sections up on the shoulders. Those really add to it very nicely. Now I will mention the little section underneath these that's actually attached them onto the armor that does need to be in grey, so you might have to detail that up yourself. The colors in here are extremely nice. We've got that nice shade of blue all over the place, that nice darker navy blue, low lighting against it nicely, the light grey, which might be a little bit hard to actually differentiate on camera a little bit, that is in there. It's got a little bit of a blue hue, but it's definitely a grey. There's a bit of a greenish hue to the actual piping on here as well. Now my only real complaint here, and it's a little bit of a letdown, but it's not too unusual for a high grade kit, is the fact that we are missing that absolutely beautiful contrasting red that is meant to be inside of the verniers. Now you can do that yourself with a Gundam marker reasonably easily, I'll add. Probably easier to just spray them from below with red and then actually just repaint them on the outside again, but it is kind of like one of the only contrasts on this particular mobile suit design, and it is sad to kind of see it missing. It would have been nice to see at least in the front. Just for a little bit of a side-by-side, there it is side-by-side with the actual art. As you can see, it's nailed pretty much everything, even down to the white included decals, but it is the little pop of red in the vernier that is missing. Again, you can do that yourself, and it's really only truly noticeable from the back where there is a lot of verniers. Again, a bit of detailing up will do this, but it would have been nice to see out of box. And jumping right on back to that point about the decals. The decals in here are very unique. These are not your usual kind of Gundam decals. Now, usually I would consider Gundam decals to be an optional thing, but some of these are straight from the, well, all of them are straight from the actual in-anime design, so that does feel like they're not really an optional thing in here. So these colors right here being done with a decal is almost like a color correcting sticker. Again, not the worst. They do look quite well from a distance. If you get in close, these are quite hard to apply. These are very rubbery, very stretchy. Again, kind of like plumber's tape. And they can air bubble really easy. However, it does mean that you've got the additional very awesome aspect that these pretty much 90 to 99% lay flat on curved surfaces, which is not anything you would have seen before with any of Bandai's decals, so that is pretty cool. A little bit difficult to apply in some certain situations, but they do turn out in the end much better than the classic high-grade sticker-style decal. So unique, and the pros definitely outweigh the cons. Now, when speaking about pros and cons, usually lately I haven't been talking too much about the model kit sins when it comes to a lot of Bandai's kits, because they're not really there so much. Mold lines and seam lines, not a big deal. Now, this kit is mold line hell. It's mainly because a lot of pieces on here are molded in one piece. For example, this shoulder, it's mold line the whole way across right there. All of the verniers, again, molded in one piece, so mold lines very visibly on every single one of them. And the same goes with all of the piping that is all over the place. This, again, is mold line hell, and this is a rubbery type material, so not as easy to clean up as the rest of the plastic on the kit. That is the pipes, by the way. The ones like here, those will clean up super easily. But you do have to kind of work around a lot of kind of detail, which will make it less of a straightforward procedure. Due to the complex design, there are quite a few seam lines all over the place, and some of them do open up when you even just flex the kit to some degree. And you'll also notice, because of all the seams and all the molds, what comes hand in hand with those is nub marks. This nubs up like crazy. So yeah, this isn't something I'm really going to minus from the overall aesthetic score. This is something I'm going to minus from the build score, because you're going to be spending a lot of time sanding this kit down to get it perfect, because it is just the means to an end to get this cool design. So jumping on into the size comparison, there it is betwixt two standard size Gundams, being the high-grade RX 78-2 and the high-grade Gundam Mark II, both revive. As you can see, the Zaku is a little bit shorter, which is pretty canon for a Zaku, as they are 0.5 of a meter shorter than a Gundam. I don't have a standard Zaku lying around to actually do a size comparison with, so this is definitely unfair to put it between these two absolute units of Zaku variants, that being the Requiem for Vengeance high-grade Zaku over here, and the high-grade AOZ High Zak over here. And now blast into some more 1/44th scale size comparisons. There it is beside the high-grade G-Quax, the high-grade Gundam Aerial, high-grade D Gundam First, high-grade Gundam EX, high-grade Zigok from Seed, high-grade Gundam Exia, high-grade Nightingale, and the high-grade Freedom Gundam. It's kind of small. So jump now into the accessories, and here's absolutely everything that comes with the Police Zaku. We get the Heat Hawk, Stun Baton, Zaku Machine Gun, Shield, and one alternate hand. So when it comes to the included hands in here, first off we've got the standard pair of holding hands. These look pretty cool for the most part, but they do have a very obvious kind of hole slot in them. Now this could be for using with some of the upcoming variants, because as far as I know, inside of this kit, there is no use for that hole. It does look functional, not really like a cost-cutting sort of measure. I'll also mention it's not in the art either, so it doesn't seem like it's actually a design aspect. We do have one alternate hand in here. This one is a open hand. It's not widespread. There is no opposability aspects to it. We do also have that little notch in it as well, which is unusual. There is a quick look at what it looks like from the other side. Swapping these in and out is simple. It's the usual gunpla high grade kind of ball joint wrist. Pop one off, pop the other one on. And one thing I have to say about this is it is pretty comically large. I know the perspective is kind of making it look even bigger than it actually is, but that's one slapping hand right there. I mean, the proportions on this thing are quite funny, but that hand has actually thrown it completely into disarray. Damn, slap hand. As for the other compatibility on this kit, we do not have the standard backpack adapter on this. It's just a solid back just like this right here. And when it comes to the base adapter hole, it's just a normal crotch hole like so. Take any Bandai stand or other 3mm stand that you've got, and you can just pop it in like this. As usual, I'm using the Good Smile Company Simple Stand, still to this day my favorite stand or action base for a high-grade Gundam kit. So now moving into the actual weapons, and first up we've got the, I assume Heat Hawk, but it might just be a standard Hawk. There's nothing about whether there's a orange blade or anything like that in the instructions. It just shows it constantly in grey, so as far as I can tell, it could be or may not be color accurate. This is an extremely simple weapon to just pop it into the hand. You just slide it down into the hole of the hand just like this, and that is pretty much all it does. There's nothing about about storage or anything like that in the instructions, so I guess that's it in a bit of a pose. The next weapon in here is the electric bat, and again, this is a very simple weapon, except instead of sliding it down from the top, you have to slide it up from the bottom because of the little lip on the bottom of it. But otherwise, there's nothing too exciting here either. It's just one piece, just like the Heat Hawk. No color separation, it just is a basic stick. And it's a stick that leads us directly into the next piece of equipment, which is the shield. Now, the sticker on here is optional because it doesn't really look that great. It's a lot of sticker over, well, a small bit of space, and as you can see, kind of bubbles. Doesn't lay too flat over the kind of surface in general. And I will mention, September, apparently there is 2 sheets of decals coming out, and this may be included on those. There are multi-purpose G-Quacks use, so this should be, and probably will be in there in case you want to hold out for that. Again, this is just a super average bit of equipment. It's just one piece of plastic. You could give it a spray of grey underneath there to kind of give it a little bit of a mechanical feel if you want to, but this is how it looks out of box. Speaking of the why I moved on to the shield next, it's because you can do this with the baton. It can be stored underneath like so. And the storage here is super simple. On the forearm right there, we've got a hole. This right here is a peg, so you just slap that on into the hole just like so, and that is what it looks like attached. I do love the design of this particular Zaku, and I do like the actual kanji for police there on the back of the shield, but I do feel it's poorly executed with the stickers, so this would look a lot better with a water slide decal. So next up, we've got Gundam G-Quax's answer to the classic Zaku machine gun. Now, I do like the design of this. It's been thickened up. We've got some ridges in there. The detail in general is quite nice. I do recommend panel lining this or giving it a wash to bring out all of that nice recessed detail. That does continue on up top. As you can see on the ammo magazine on top, we do have a lot of nice detail on it. However, I did notice there is a little bit of color separation in the manual that is not present here. There does seem to be a little bit of light gray on top and around the front, as you can see right there. Easy enough to do by hand, but it is worth noting. Getting the Zaku machine gun attached on is super simple. It's the sandwich style, so you open up the hand, pop the handle into this section of the hand like so. It fits in perfectly, so it doesn't wiggle around when you're attaching the back on. It's also nice the way you get some of the dark of the hand through the rear arm of the hand too for that two-tone color. And then getting it attached is just the usual popping the ball joint into the wrist like so, and this does look great. Again, overall the equipment and the accessories in here did feel a little bit lackluster at first, but it's kind of a microcosm for this kit in general, that there's multiple lackluster feeling aspects to it that do build up to end up looking and feeling incredible once combined, and this does look and feel incredible now. So finally now, jumping into the articulation on this and the usual kind of comment on how strong this is. This is ridiculous. It's not going to move at all. Sometimes I wonder if even in a bad way. The plastic this is made out of almost feels like ABS. Hold on. Nope, just looking at the instructions, it's all polystyrene, but it has that kind of grippy rubberiness that ABS usually has. So they've definitely changed the plastic recipe in this particular kit. It has a heavy duty, almost, well, action figure-y kind of feel to it. It's very unique. Anyway, let's try out the usual test pose and see how it deals with it. Oh man, that was a genuine laugh. There we go. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it almost looks good, the kind of move it's pulling off there. It looks intentional. But that's the best it can do. That is absolutely wild. So the legs are as unusual as they look. They feel as unusual as they look, I should say. Just check out that knee as well from the side perspective. I just don't understand what they were thinking with that. That doesn't look technical or robot-like in any shape or form. It's just teetering on there. Good job, it's good and rubbery and strong. Also, like I mentioned, there does seem to be a mod in here to get a second joint out of it. We'll mention that, but I'm not sure if that'll make it any better or worse. So jumping in a little bit deeper for the full articulation, and first off, when it comes to the neck, it is quite limited. The up and down is extremely limited. We do have a little bit of a giggity goo to move that a little bit more. Side to side is pretty decent. Moving down to the body, we do have a nice side torso action going on here. We can actually move this whole plate forward and back from the torso. That's very nice. The shoulder here is a ball joint attaching inwards like so. There it is, forward and back. We've got the full rotation right here. The shoulder armor can move, but not too much. Even though there is a ball joint and a hinge in here, it doesn't really give you too much. So that does mean moving the arm up and out is a little bit on the limited side, so you're not going to get the full T pose out of it. Full spin at the upper bicep. The bend at the elbow is decent but not great considering how much building actually goes into it, but you can still get a decent enough bend. The wrist joint is just your standard ball joint, just moves a little bit, rotates around. The ab crunch in here is the best, it's double jointed, so this has its own giggity goo, and there it is, back and forward, so it does move quite a bit. We've also got full rotation right here. Moving down now to the Zaku's childbearing hips, and they do okay to the front and the back, thankfully because we don't have any skirting armor, so the swing forward and back is very, very good. There is absolutely zero out to the sides whatsoever. They can move in and out ever so slightly, but no splits. And the design almost makes it look like you could align it into that kind of little crevice to get a little bit more out to the side, but well, you kind of can. If you actually align it just the right way, you can get more out of it, but the pose that gets you is this. I'm not fucking joking. Kawaii desu ne. And speaking of jokes, that knee is an absolute joke. There is a double jointed knee in here, but the top part is locked for whatever reason. You may get something better out of it if you do cut off the little tabs while building this, but even the concept makes no sense because the lower leg just goes right into the direction of those verniers. So what's going to roast its own leg off? Weird bend, weird knee. The weirdness continues. This is all we have forward and back at the ankle. That is abysmal because the joint is only designed to go side to side like this, which once again, practically doesn't work that well. I mean, seriously, that brings us back here again. They only kind of turn in just like so. What, you know, this does pull off some poses, but they're very this kit specific and unique poses. If you want to pose in like this, which you probably do, that's pretty cool, but that's all it can do. We do have rotation at those ankles as well, just like so. So overall, this kit can't really do that much. There's a lot of building to it, a lot of unique aspects to the build, but what you get in the end, the payoff is pretty pathetic. And it's limited to like 2 poses. One of them again being this. One of them again being this, and that other one pose Bandai keeps putting it in that makes it look like it can actually do dynamic stuff. So if you want those 2 poses, great. Otherwise, not so great. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and this is one wild ride of a Gundam kit right here. It did just get gold tier because there's certain aspects that hold it back, but this is the second kit in a row I'm giving the new type award to as a must-build kit. You need to build this. It's, I guess the weirdest way to try and kind of sum this up is it's like parallel world gunpla. Like in another world that's running parallel to this one right here, a different dimension. Where it's just, you know, there's just subtle differences. It's not that wildly different. The grass is pink, the sky is yellow. In that world, they eat up their butts and poop out their mouths, that sort of thing. If you've ever wondered what kind of gunpla they're building in that universe, it's this one right here. It's pretty much the same, but at the same time, it's wildly different. It's so weird. And all of which in a good way. Except maybe the pooping out your mouth one, but anyway. For the aesthetics, this, well, it got near to full marks because aesthetically it is absolutely fantastic. The only things that would really hold it back are the fact that there is no color inside of the verniers and there is a lot of like cleanup that does need to be done with the kit. The stickers are very, again, parallel worldy, not good nor bad. And it's its looks that are its strongest aspect. It looks phenomenal. When it comes to the accessories, everything in here is a little bit on the bland side. It's all pretty basic. The Zaku machine gun is very, very nice, but that's the only thing out of it all. There isn't really much you can do with the stuff that's in here. It's normal, but extremely, extremely basic besides the machine gun. Articulation-wise was a hard one to rank because its articulation is technically fairly crap. However, there's a lot of building going into it, which should have made it a little better. But at the same time, it works out wildly, case in point being the poses I've put this into. It has bad articulation in general, the knees are awful, the ankles are kind of weird too, but the way you play with it ends up with these wild poses that maybe you'd never actually want, you'd never actually try, maybe you do want them. They work out well. What it can do looks over the top, ridiculous, and old school anime. Love it. Finally then, when it comes to the build of this is a whole lot of fun. It's a little difficult in some aspects, but at its core, it's so different to standard gunpla. The plastic apparently is polystyrene, but it's really rubbery. It's almost action figure-y. It's kind of like some Chinese kits are. That is quite good. You get a solid kit, but it does mark a little bit while cutting it out, and there's a lot of very obvious mold lines yet again. However, it builds up so differently, feels so different, and overall, it's a must-build kit. You need to try it. Again, on paper, it doesn't look that great. But in the hand, it's so different. Again, this is like parallel world gunpla. It's an average gunpla for that other world. It feels like no other gunpla I've ever placed my hands on. That includes the G-Quacks too. This is completely different. So even though it does everything reasonably well, it does it so different, you've got to try it. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla reviews. I got this through Hobby Link Japan. There is a link down there in the description. And as always, I will see you next time. As always, I cannot finish this video right here without thanking every single one of you guys for watching, and special thanks to those who support me on both the channel memberships as well as on Patreon, including Simon, Scotty Thomas, Abraxas, RG59061, Joe, Vanfon, and Caleb Engelhardt.